The first thing you notice about Shirley Jones isn't her age, it's her laugh. It's soft and silvery, the kind of laugh that could only belong to someone who has lived through the golden glow of Hollywood's greatest years and still carries its sparkle in her eyes. At 91, she sits with the posture of a woman who has nothing left to prove, yet everything left to enjoy. There's a hint of mischief in her smile, a reminder that even time can't dull the radiance of a woman who once danced through Technicolor dreams. The interviewer leans forward, smiling. "You've kissed some of the most handsome men in movie history," they say. "Who really made your heart skip?" Shirley lets out a playful hum, eyes glinting with the same mischief that once lit up a cinema screen. "Oh, honey," she says, her voice dripping with charm. "That's a dangerous question, but I suppose at my age, I've earned the right to tell a few secrets." She pauses, letting the words hang like perfume in the air. "There were 7 of them," she finally declares, tapping a manicured finger against her armrest. 7 men who could make any woman forget her lines. Her grin widens, and she begins to count. 1. Gordon MacRae. The name alone makes her expression soften. "Gordon," she says fondly, as though he's still just across the set, waiting for his cue. "My first leading man, and what a leading man he was." She remembers being barely out of her teens when they filmed Oklahoma together. Hollywood was vast and intimidating then, a world of studio lights and endless expectations. But Gordon MacRae was steady as stone, handsome, confident, and with that rich baritone voice that could silence a room. When Gordon sang, Shirley says, the world stopped. That voice wrapped around you like velvet, and when he looked at you, you forgot there was anyone else in the room. He had this all-American charm, tall, broad-shouldered, with a grin that could melt butter. But he wasn't just handsome. He was kind. Funny, too. The sort of funny that sneaks up on you when you least expect it. She laughed softly, a sound filled with fondness and memory. He had this steadiness that made you feel safe. Even when the cameras rolled, he made every moment feel real. He'd take my hand, sing a line like "If I Loved You," and for a second, maybe more, I believed every word. She glances off for a moment, eyes shimmering. He taught me something about love on screen. It's not about pretending. It's about listening, trusting, and letting yourself believe in the story, even just for the length of a song. 2. Frank Sinatra. At the mention of his name, Shirley bursts into a knowing laugh. "Oh, Frank," she says, shaking her head. "You couldn't work in Hollywood back then without having a Sinatra story." She leans forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "He didn't try to be magnetic, he just was. You'd walk into a room and suddenly the air would change. He didn't even need to say a word. The suit, the smirk, the cigarette balanced just so. It was like gravity had shifted." She chuckles. Everyone orbited Frank Sinatra. One minute he was cracking jokes and lighting up the room, and the next he'd be quiet, humming something beautiful under his breath. You never knew which Frank you'd get, but either way, you couldn't look away. Her eyes soften. "That voice," she murmurs, "velvet and smoke. When he sang, you believed every word." He had a way of making a song sound personal, like he was singing just for you. And when he said your name, it somehow sounded better than it ever had before. She sighs, smiling wistfully. Frank carried mystery with him. Even when he laughed, there was something deeper there, a touch of melancholy that made him unforgettable. He was every bit the legend people say. He didn't just sing the song, he was the song. And darling, no one ever forgot the melody. 3. James Garner. Now, James Garner, Shirley says, and her entire expression softens. He was the kind of man Hollywood doesn't make anymore. Her voice carries warmth and quiet admiration. Yes, he was handsome, unfairly so, but it was his gentleness that made him special. He had this easy confidence, like he didn't have to prove a thing. When we worked together, it wasn't just his charm, it was his humor. Oh, that humor! He could have an entire crew laughing between takes without ever trying too hard. She pauses, smiling at the memory. He never took himself too seriously. You'd be in the middle of an emotional scene, and he'd flash that half-smile. the kind that made you forget you were acting at all. It was just two people caught in something honest. Her tone grows tender. What I loved most was his decency. No ego, no pretense. He treated everyone, from the biggest star to the newest extra, with the same respect. That kind of grace stays with you. It lingers. She leans back, laughing softly. Oh, he was charming. That voice, that way he said your name, it was like an invitation. I think half the women in Hollywood had a soft spot for him, and rightly so. James Garner was proof that goodness never goes out of style. For Paul Newman, when his name is spoken, Shirley lets out a delighted laugh. Paul Newman, she repeats, savoring it. You didn't have to meet Paul to fall a little bit in love with him. You just had to see him smile. She shakes her head, smiling. Those eyes, that grin, they should have been illegal. But what made Paul truly special wasn't his looks. It was that kindness underneath. He had this decency that you could feel in the room. Her voice takes on a softer rhythm. The first time I met him was at a charity event. He walked in and the entire room seemed to brighten. He didn't demand attention. He just elevated everything. When he looked at you, really looked at you, it felt like he saw something that nobody else did. She smiles, remembering, and that little mischievous streak. Oh, it was there. He'd whisper something under his breath, and you'd be laughing for hours. But there was always substance behind the sparkle. Paul was more than a movie star. He was a man who knew what to do with being one. He used it for good. Her expression softens, reverent now. He was extraordinary because he never forgot how to be human. His love for his family, his philanthropy, his humility, it made him luminous. And those blue eyes? She chuckles. Let's just say no camera has ever done them justice. 5. Cary Grant. At this name, Shirley laughs. A pure, musical laugh that sounds like champagne bubbles. Cary Grant, she says, savoring each syllable. Now, there was a man who made sophistication look effortless. She shakes her head with a grin. The suit, the voice, the way he carried himself. He could have read the phone book and made every woman swoon. Cary was grace personified. Her gaze drifts slightly, as if she's back at a glittering Hollywood gala. I met him once at a party. Everyone else was trying far too hard to be noticed, but Cary didn't have to. The moment he entered the room, you felt it, the temperature shifted, the air thickened. He had this quiet magnetism that didn't shout. It just existed. Her voice drops to a fond whisper. When he spoke to you, it felt like a secret. He had humor behind those eyes, kindness beneath the polish. He wasn't just dashing, he was genuinely gentle. The kind of man who held your hand like it mattered. Shirley laughs again, shaking her head. I remember thinking, good heavens, this man makes conversation feel like foreplay, but always with class, always. Her eyes twinkle. Cary Grant made romance an art form. You never quite figured him out, and that's what made him timeless. 6. Rock Hudson. When his name comes up, Shirley's expression turns soft, touched with something tender. Rock Hudson, she says quietly. He was as kind as he was handsome, and believe me, that's saying something. Her smile is wistful. There was a warmth about Rock that you could feel the moment he walked in. Yes, he was tall and impossibly good-looking, but that wasn't what drew people to him. It was his ease, his gentleness. He never made you feel small, not even when he towered over everyone in the room. She chuckles, and that laugh, deep, genuine, the kind that could lift a whole set's mood. He made the long days lighter. Everyone wanted to be around him. Her voice lowers. He had this comforting presence. He made people feel safe, especially women. That was rare in our business back then. Rock didn't compete. He didn't perform masculinity. He simply was, and that was more powerful than any act. Shirley looks distant for a moment. He had a beautiful soul, sincere, gentle without sharp edges. You always left a conversation with him feeling lighter. People remember his looks, but what they should remember is his heart. Rock Hudson was grace, pure, and simple. 7. Robert Redford. When his name is mentioned, Shirley's entire face brightens. Robert Redford, she says slowly, almost reverently. Now, there was a man who defined cool without ever having to say a word. Her smile turns mischievous. He had that California ease, sunshine in human form. The hair, the smile, the quiet confidence that didn't need to announce itself. He just glowed. She leans forward slightly, voice filled with admiration. Bob had depth behind those eyes, a stillness that drew you in. He wasn't performing charm, he was charm. Every word felt thoughtful, every silence meaningful. She chuckles softly. We met a few times, premieres, events. Even the most jaded crowd straightened up when he walked in. He had that effect. You couldn't fake that kind of presence. Her eyes soften. He was gracious, polite, maybe even a little shy. That made him even more irresistible. There was no pretense, no showmanship, just quiet authenticity. Those eyes, though, she laughs, dangerous in the slowest, most thoughtful way. You'd start a conversation and forget everything you were about to say. Her voice grows reflective. Robert Redford was the last of a certain kind of leading man. Thoughtful, artistic, endlessly decent. He reminded us that real charisma isn't loud, it's steady. And goodness, she adds with a wink, never goes out of style.